In a way, life is nothing but transitions. For example, you may think of one transition as, I wake up and have a cup of coffee and then get ready for work. So wake up is a transition. It's an event, and that it transitions to I have a cup of coffee, and then that transitions to I get ready for work. So there's 3 events you're naming and 2 transitions, if that's the description. Or you can even get a wider focus. You can say, I used to be a child, now I'm an adult. But I'm interested today in diving more deeply into the granularity that any life has. I don't want to talk about the large picture here. Even I wake up and first thing I have is a cup of coffee. That's way too wide of a focus. So let's get granular. You wake up. Do you keep your eyes closed when you awaken, or do you open them right away? Do you wake up and then roll over and get out of bed right away? Or maybe you lay there and be still and curled up under the covers. Try to recall a dream. If anyone else is there, maybe you snuggle with them for a time. I could keep going, of course, with the granularity. Even given what I was saying before at the start of this, just each word right now as I speak each word is very granular. Each word is starting and then stopping, and it just goes on like that. Something as simple as getting out of bed is essentially a whole series of discrete movements. You peel off the covers. That has a beginning and an end. And then maybe you swing your legs over the side of the bed. And if you notice, one foot may hit the floor before the other. And then there's leaning forward, beginning to stand, and take brushing your teeth. That's a huge event. Tons of little movements and little actions taking place. So many beginnings and endings just from brushing your teeth. So you may be doing these things in the haze of still being half asleep, but still, it's a long and highly detailed series of events. And those are just the little everyday activities of living. There are larger transitions like getting married, for example, or moving to a new city. Transitions are about change, obviously. Things change. That's an easy truth to say, but it's hard to live. It's hard to live because there's usually some part of us that wants things to stay the same. This episode started a couple of minutes ago, and it's in the nature of these podcasts to be able to start and stop them as you wish. But I'm going to assume you started it, and I'll further assume you're going to listen all the way through. Let's treat this very podcast itself as a lesson in what the title says. Let moments die. Let moments be born. Well, the very beginning of the podcast has died. The birth of you listening to this podcast already passed. It's too late to market. Maybe I'll ring a bell or something to signal the new beginning. So how about let's call ourselves in limbo right now, between a beginning and an ending. So I'm going to ring a bell after the intro, and that's going to be a birth. And that's going to be the birth of you listening to the rest of this podcast. What that means is that this intro part is going to end. The very beginning is long gone, and we'll get a chance to practice with the death of this intro very soon. In just a moment, I'm going to say my usual, that's what I want to talk about today, that thing I always say. And that's going to be the last thing you hear before the intro music. So let's take a deep breath. Let's get ready. Let's embrace the death of the first part of this podcast. Letting moments be born, letting moments die. That's what I want to talk about today. Hello and welcome to the 10 Crutches podcast. My name is David. I'm glad you're here. Birth can be so wonderful and joyous. The second part of this podcast was just born, and you were here for it. Let's imagine you are walking down a street. You're headed towards some building, and when you get there, the plan is to go in. You're going to enter the building. Can you imagine pausing at the entrance, maybe just for a moment, pausing and saying goodbye to the whole life you lived prior to that moment? Maybe your hand is on the door. Just hang out there in your imagination with your hand on the imaginary door of the imaginary building you're about to imaginarily enter. The past is dying. It's dead. The past is gone. But, as William Faulkner said, it's also true. The past isn't dead. It isn't even the past. You still carry everything in your past along with you, like you may carry someone you love in your heart. The past of everything before entering the building, that past is going to die, and then the birth of being in the building is about to happen. You carry everything, but you also carry nothing at all. Transitions, they happen all the time. One of the reasons I believe that people seek the thrills they do, or perhaps they create all kinds of drama in their life, is that these kind of transitions that I'm talking about are for many people too boring to notice, much less celebrate. By the standards we often hold it to, most of our existence is kind of boring. Leaving the street and entering a building, with some deep sense of a profound transition happening, I think most people are going to just be shaking their heads. Part of the reason we start looking for stories that are somewhat exciting, wanting our life to be exciting, is that much of our regular, ordinary life is really not all that exciting. So we start adding in stuff. We have to add in stuff because we want to be essential. We want to be important. We want to have some meaning and be of some value. I am not someone who is simply brushing their teeth, just like all the other schmucks in the world are brushing their teeth. I live a meaningful life, goddammit. I am filled. And I also happen to be at the same time brushing my teeth, but that's not the main thing in my life. But when you look for meaning outside of what you're doing, you skip over so much fascinating detail. You miss seeing all the transitions involved in, well, let's stay with brushing your teeth. Opening the toothpaste tube happens before squeezing some toothpaste onto the brush. Is that too obvious? Maybe it is. Most people will put the tube down before or as they start brushing their teeth. Why pay attention to that? Well, because it's what's happening. If you brush your teeth with your phone scrolling or your mind scrolling through your latest fantasy, you're going to miss the actual actions of your actual life. If you actively look for the transitions in your life, you will be amazed at how many you live through in even an hour. Just a tenth of a second is all you need for the funeral of the moment that has died. And another tenth of a second for a little baby shower you throw for the newborn moment. Over and over. Doesn't take a lot of time to notice. But noticing will give you tons of time in your actual life. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Please visit the home of the 10 Crutches podcast at 10crutches.link. That's 10crutches.link. The book that inspired the podcast, a book I wrote called 10 Crutches for Walking in the Present is available for free download on the website. Also on the website, you can visit the archive to hear any published episode and see show notes for any and every show. Thanks so much for listening, and once again, thanks so much for listening, and I won't say it once again. See you next time.